From the KTOX studios in Needles, California, with Rubin Broadcasting and Pirate Web Radio Productions, it is now time for Ghost Stories with Rob Hanson. And welcome back. It is Ghost Stories. This hour, I'm being joined by Cris August. And welcome, Cris. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
I am doing absolute fantastic. Had a great first hour with Will and Becky out of Tucson, and they talked about going to a couple of different places in ghost hunting. One of them was the old Tucson studios. Have you ever been out there?
I have not. No.
Oh, you might want to hook up with them. they had some pretty good stories to tell about their experiences.
I have to say, Arizona is or has become one of our favorite locations to investigate and visit. So it sounds really awesome. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. Well, one of the neater stories that they had to tell is they were going around these places. And, she looked at, oh, John Wayne did something like this, and then she'd hear a voice. And anybody catch that? And then she'd go someplace else and say, oh, John Wayne was here, and hear a knock. Or someplace else, and she said, every time I mentioned John Wayne, something strange would happen. So, right. Yeah, that's cool.
That's one of the best case scenarios. That's what you want. That's ideal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking, I got to go there. I know the only two words I'm going to say, John Wayne. Hello.
That's right. Now I know what to say.
Yeah, there you go. So, what have you been up to for the last few weeks? I know you came. Man. I know you came out to a location here in Arizona.
Yeah, we just got back a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, I'm not able to disclose the property, at least not yet.
Right.
We are. We clearly will always respect the privacy of the location, but it's looking pretty good that we may just be bringing some cool new events out to that particular location, which hasn't really been done before. But it is a hugely historic venue, which is no big surprise for Arizona. It is, we are still, just even weeks later, we're still sifting through and organizing all the data that we've collected, all the audio, all the video. In fact, just throughout most of the day today, that's really what I've been doing. We're finalizing everything, cross-referencing, kind of crossing our T's, dotting our I's here before we have a final report on what we collected. And I have to say, while the history was pretty significant, pretty darn cool, we actually had a lot of fun doing some debunking over there, which was really neat. And to be honest, as much as we want to see a ghost, there is a lot of joy and fun in being able to debunk things that, that you would think there is no explanation for, but eventually you figure it out, and it's really kind of rewarding.
Oh boy, that's sort of like having fun being a killjoy.
You can put it. It's bittersweet. It is bittersweet. We feel really good about ourselves, and then oh man, this isn't a ghost after all.
That's all right though. Well, every time you debunk something, and I've seen this with pretty much everybody I've talked to over the past few weeks is, every time they debunk something, they learn that can automatically bypass it to something that they can't.
Right.
And it becomes easier for them. So I don't know if that's true or not. That's a theory, another theory I'm working on, but it just seems that way to me.
But it's also important to note that just because you can recreate something doesn't mean that's, for example, if if somebody somebody reports seeing a door opening on its own, yes, we can easily go recreate. We can tie a string to the door and we can open the door.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that there was somebody, hiding out in your house, pulling a string to open your door. So just because you can recreate it doesn't mean that was the exact circumstance at the time. So it gets a little tricky.
Well, I can understand that. I'm talking more complex debugging, like, oh, hello, somebody was passing by a window and was actually talking, or something like that, and not necessarily a spirit, but a spirited individual. I have a couple of them at home. I call them Megan and Tiffany.
Yes, there's, unfortunately, especially if we're doing an investigation, there's a lot of outside noise contamination. It's kind of a bummer because even if you do capture something that you really feel is pretty profound, but the fact that that there were, a couple of drunk people, walking down the street around that time, it's almost like, unless we can be sure that it wasn't those people, we have to trash it, because your skeptic is going to say, well, you just heard a couple of drunk people walking by about 45 seconds ago. It probably was them. So when you have that kind of outside noise contamination, it's kind of a bummer, because it's almost like you feel like you just can't win, to a skeptic at least.
Well, isn't that one of the primary reasons why you set your equipment and then just walk away for a while, let things settle down, so you can get a good ambient background? Yeah,
of course. A lot of the reason why we do the settling is, personally speaking, I find it quite fascinating to hear and observe what may be going on when nobody's around. And when you get something really eerie that pops up when everybody's vacated the building, that's one of my favorite things to listen to, is the settling of a location and just hearing what's going on. And you hear some trippy things once in a while.
I seem to remember an EVP saying, "Andrew."
Yeah, the Andrew EVP, yeah. He's still mad at me about that.
I imagine I would be too, honestly.
Yeah. But, hey, maybe we never would have caught that if I hadn't advised everyone to stay in pairs. So maybe it happened the way it was supposed to.
There you go. Well, it's neither here nor there, but, it's all fascinating. It really is. So what else have you been up to that you can actually talk about?
Well, man, we are back in tour season. We do tours year-round, but this is the time of year where things pick up going into summer, and kids are getting out of school, and people want to come out and do ghost tours. But outside of investigations that we can't disclose, we're always scoping out new really cool locations. And actually right about, it's funny that you bring this up, as far as places we've been, right about this time last year, we did an investigation at the infamous Omen House. Are you familiar with that in Beverly Hills?
That's okay. Now that's the location where they filmed The Omen, right?
Well, no. This is at least not that I know of. This is the location, the house next to the home where the Sharon Tate murders took place.
Oh no, I'm not. Okay.
Yeah. It's David Omen is a fun guy. He owns the home. He's been living there for many years. But he considers his home, the Omen House, to be quite a significant portal for spirits and spiritual activity. So we were pretty enthusiastic about being able to come out there. David is quite a fun, goofy guy, so he definitely makes it interesting for you.
How nutty do you have to be to live in an active haunted house? I mean, really.
Well, I think I don't have any problems saying that, because I'm sure David would be the first person to say he's quite a character. So, but he had us laughing and having a good time. But we did a live stream. And this is totally unexpected as far as what happened during the live stream.
Uh-huh.
But we were in the bottom level or basement, so to speak, of his home, and he has it's like an entertainment room and couches and all his trophies and whatnot in this room. And so we did this live stream, and we're just going to interview David and get kind of the scoop, what's going on with this house, show us around and ask him some questions. And we picked up on the live stream a voice that clearly sounded like a woman. And it was clear as day, to the point that in this live stream we stopped and we're all talking to each other. Did you guys hear that? What was that? So we're and this is like the best case. You get this on the live stream. I mean, that's perfect. That's what you want, and you're hoping that people in the audience heard it. So at the time, if it's a live stream, I'm not sure if people can rewind on a live stream. I don't know. At least when it's live.
Right.
So we all think it's coming from the back room. It's maybe about 25 feet from where we're standing or less. We're all looking over there, and we're all positive it came from that room. So anyway, fast forward, David has that whole house rigged with cameras. And he's got a camera on everything there, which was great in this case. So he pulls up the DVR from his system, and we're looking back at this particular moment during the stream. And lo and behold, that voice comes through clear as day through his cameras, which is perfectly scored. We're thinking, all right, we weren't crazy. We heard this. And it was incredible. So anyway, Andrew, and then one of our guys on our team, he had his audio recorder in that back room, and we were convinced that's exactly where it was coming from. But he listens through on his audio, and he says, man, I didn't find anything. I didn't even hear it. So David's cameras catch it. The live stream video catches it, but the recorder that's sitting in the room where we all directed our attention to, we all knew it came from that room, and he's got nothing. It's nothing. And so we're kind of stumped. Where the heck did this come from? And it was just a perfect moment, and it's inaudible as far as what is being said, but it's very clear that something is being said. So
all right.
you would think that.
Well, hang on to that thought. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
About 3 minutes, we'll be back. It is Ghost Stories. Nice. I even pulled up the Omen House website, theomenhouse.com. We'll be talking about that when we come back. It is Ghost Stories. And welcome back. It is Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Rob Hanson. I've got Cris August on the line tonight, and we're talking about the Omen House. I'm at their website right now. I'm kind of drooling over it. He's got an event going on coming up June 30th. Dinner with a Ghost.
He does.
Dinner with a Ghost. Barbecue rib and chicken dinner. Plus the ghost investigation. I would spend money on that one. That sounds like fun, actually.
Heck yeah, why not? Go have something to eat, go do some investigating, and check off a significant haunted location off your list.
No doubt about it. So anyway, we were talking about your experiences there, and I really ought to start getting paid for plugging these places, but that's okay. It's neither here nor there. But go ahead. You were into a story that I had to interrupt you on.
Yeah, so I was just mentioning or talking about the voice that was picked up, which is an ideal situation during an actual live stream that we were doing while we were interviewing David Oman. And the best part about it is it was something that everyone heard. Myself, David, Mike, who was in there, Larry, who was doing the filming, Andrew, we all heard it. And it's interesting how we were all drawn to the same area. We were sure that it came from the room just next door. Andrew's audio was, he had that recorder in there, so we cross-referenced everything that we had, and he got nothing. There was nothing on his audio. And so either there's something weird going on, or that just wasn't the source. It didn't come from that room, but it doesn't make sense. So we're actually going to be putting that together and posting that on our YouTube coming up here soon. It's just too cool to not
good.
Show people.
Message me when you have it up because I want to see that one. That's yeah.
Absolutely.
That's an oh yeah kind of moment. I mean,
It was awesome. And we have an inside joke. I bring this little digital piano with me everywhere now. Those kids pianos. Mm-hmm. And I actually bought one because David Oman had one in his house. And during that live stream, we used that same piano to see if it would go off. And he was telling us stories. This piano has a mind of its own. This thing will go off at the weirdest times, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. And we're like, yeah, sure. So three times in this live stream, that piano is going off in addition to the voice, and there's no pattern to it. Logically, we're going to say, okay, this thing's got to go off at a certain set time increment. It goes off maybe every 5 minutes, or it's motion activated or something, and whatever. It plays a little tune or a little jingle. But no, there's no pattern to it. It doesn't go off at any specific time. It could sit there for 8 hours and not even make a sound. So it kept going off. So anyway, we used that same device upstairs in the Oman house, and we had some direct responses to it, asking, whoever's here, I want you to go walk up to that piano, a little pink piano. Yes, it's pink. And I want you to play it. And it actually did it on command a few times, which is pretty awesome. But the best part about the story in the piano is that piano came from when David Oman's house was being used for the premiere party of the more modern Poltergeist movie that they released a couple years back.
Oh.
And they were doing a screening party or a release party. I'm not sure what it was. But they ended up redoing one of the rooms in the house as an exact replica of the bedroom of that little girl from that movie. And so they put that little pink piano in the room as one of the props. Mm-hmm. So he's, ever since then, he said, ever since I've had this piano, this thing's just got a mind of its own. So anyway, long story short, I had to get myself one of those pianos. And I have no shame. I don't care if it's a pink piano. If that thing works when I need it to, and if it does its job, I'm taking that thing everywhere with me, which I do. Uh-huh. I love that thing. So yeah, the Oman House is a really unique location, and just being so close to the site of the Sharon Tate murder. And all of that is, I think most of us are familiar with the Manson murders and the Manson family.
Yes.
There's definitely just that eerie vibe about it, and knowing that it's right there. You can't help but your mind just kind of envisions that moment and what was going on while you're right next to that property. So it was a very eerie and unique location. We definitely will be back there. David Owen's pretty cool.
Oh, definitely. I'm hungry for barbecue chicken right now. Anyway, so getting back to your own piano, have you ever had your piano go off?
Oh yeah, we take it everywhere.
And
it does.
Neat.
Yeah, we'll leave it running during investigation. There are times where it doesn't do anything. We're obviously looking for those direct replies, and it worked for us a couple times at this recent investigation in Arizona, where there is a presence of a child reported in one of the rooms. So we did get some direct responses that way. As we spoke about before, at the Brackenfern Manor, we get a lot of action with that piano. But there are just locations where it doesn't budge, doesn't do anything.
Oh,
it is what it is.
Obviously, you don't have any musically inclined spirits.
You know what? That could be valid.
What is this gizmo?
Right. We're assuming that, the ghosts even know what to do with it. And I wonder, can ghosts even, hear? Can they see color? We want them to manipulate these fancy gadgets and things that have bright lights on them, but can the ghost or spirit even see it? We don't even know. So for all we know, we think, hey, there's this fancy gadget here, and the ghost is like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. What is that?
Yeah. Well, I hear that. I hear that, and it's almost a universal line with some of the EVPs that I've seen, and go down by the red blinking light and tell us your name,
right?
Or whatever, or speak into this device here, and the question has to be: do they even see the device? Do they recognize the device? Do they see the blinking lights? What is it? And good question. Sounds like you've got some EVP questions to ask.
Well, and one of the things I especially point out on tours and when we do events is, and I'm guilty of this 110%, and I think most people are. But for example, if I'm, if we're in San Juan Capistrano and we're walking up to an old, 1790s adobe building, we're going to knock on the door, and by default, we're going to say, hello. Hey, is anybody in there? Can you open the door? And I tell people, or I ask them, well, what's the problem? What's wrong with this scenario? And most people don't really think about it, and they're thinking, well, maybe they can't hear you. Well, no. How about perhaps they don't even speak English? Why do we assume that all ghosts and spirits even speak English? And I'm guilty of this. I mean, that's just, what we do automatically. But, I'm not going to go to Germany and speak in English and understand what I'm saying. So we got to check ourselves once in a while when we're doing this stuff.
Well, and that's another thing too, because I've heard some EVPs, and I'm really starting to fall in love with EVPs because they're so strange, just inexplicably strange, and I'm listening to some of these, and I'm going. Some of the more unintelligible ones, and going like, well, what if? And I've thought this. What if they're speaking a foreign language? What if if it's a dead language? What if it's something nobody's spoken for 20,000 years? Whatever it is, and that kind of boggles my mind, and I have to put it out of my head because, in order to have true communication, two parties have to understand each other.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. But that also leads to the question, do the spirits have a capability of learning?
That's anyone's guess. Maybe they do. Maybe they understand a lot more than we think or give them credit for. But on the flip side, maybe they're completely lost as to what in the world we are doing or saying. They could just be throwing their hands in the air and saying, I don't know what the heck you guys are doing. I'm just done.
I'm just done. I'm out of here.
I've had enough. That does happen where you think you're communicating and you're getting all these hits and things are really exciting, then all of a sudden it just stops. And I can only imagine in my head, well, maybe they just kind of, like I said, threw their hands up in the air and said, I'm over this. I don't know what the heck's happening. You guys are speaking a foreign language.
Yeah. Thanks for the pretty lights that I couldn't see. See you later. Yeah.
Exactly. My imagination tends to go in those kinds of situations where I think of these silly scenarios in my mind. But hey,
yeah, well, why not? Why not? Well, is it any more ridiculous than some other explanations you can create? I mean, it's all good grief, The answer could be yes, the answer could be no. And the only way you're actually going to find out is, once you leave this earthly plane and start haunting radio stations.
Exactly.
Well, I told Becky and Will when they came on this morning. I'm planning my death. Not to die immediately, but what I'm going to do afterwards. Where am I going to hang out? It's going to be one, two places, either this radio station or my bedroom. So
one or two,
one or two of those places. I might go and pop in and say boo to my kids and their grandkids, and then pop out every now and again. But mostly it's going to be this radio station or my bedroom. I like I said, I haven't figured it out yet, but one of the things I really want to do, and these are my goals, I want to learn how to manipulate electronic equipment. So when I do come back to the radio station, I can really screw with the next coast.
You want to manipulate the electronic equipment. I want to be able to throw things at people. That's all I want to do. That's my life goal, is to try to figure out how to do that. And hopefully it comes easily when you cross over. Then I'm just going to be having the time of my life.
Well, I talked to a group out of Canada a few weeks ago, and they claim to be followed around by a pair of spirits from. They died. I guess they died during World War I, and they were trying to figure out the connection to this thing, and went on and so forth. Well, it turns out that the leader of this group had a great grandfather or great grandfather, I can't remember which, died during World War I, and these two were members of the unit of their unit. So the connection was there, and they get EVPs of their voices. Who's here? Boom, boom, every time. And so it's but it's really kind of interesting. I was like, how do you do that? Well, they said, well, it just happens. I don't know.
Right. It makes me think. I always make light and say that not a whole lot ever really happens to me, or everyone else around me is experiencing things. But once in a while, I'm really tuned in. I don't know how I do it or what mindset I'm able to get myself into. But and I'm not at all claiming that I remotely have this ability, but it's something that I feel like I've been able to tune into, at least in the recent years. When this takes place specifically on a ship called the Star of India, which we do a lot of investigations and events on. It's down in San Diego.
Uh-huh.
It's the oldest active sailing ship in the world, and it's really quite a treat if you get to experience that location.
Okay,
but in the early days,
I'm going to have you hold on to that thought. We're at the Star of India. All right, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back. We'll be back with the Star of India story with Cris August. Hang on, Cris. And you are listening to Ghost Stories. Wow. I'm having a ball. I love it. We'll be back.
You have a ghost story you want to share with Rob? Call 855-586-9134. Phone lines are now open.
And welcome back. It is Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Rob Hanson, and we've got Cris August on the line here. Welcome, Cris. Welcome back. And
Hey.
we're at the India Star.
Star of India.
Star of India. See, I'm dyslexic. Everything goes backwards for me. That's the Star of India.
No judgment. Star of India, yes. That is, Star of India is in San Diego. It is located at the Maritime Museum at the harbor. And like I said before, it's the oldest active sailing ship in the world. So anyway, the story that I was making here and was going to tell is that, in our early days of going out to the Star, before we even knew any better, even before I was really all that educated about its history, one of my first visits when I walked on that ship, I had this, there was just, and it sounds really weird and crazy, but there was kind of this internal voice in my head that was telling me, it was saying Chinese. And it was pretty overwhelming. Eventually I said it out loud. I said, I don't know what it is, but I just have a feeling that there is a presence of a Chinese person here. And somebody who was fairly knowledgeable about the Star, I didn't know much about it, they spoke up and said, well, this is the site, this is the exact spot where a little Chinese boy fell from the mast, and he fell to his death.
Oh, my.
And died. And the moral of the story is that once in a while, I will have this weird moment, this ability to hear either a voice that's being said or something that's just kind of screaming at me as far as some kind of connection. An example of this is sort of, maybe we're doing an EVP session. We're standing around and we're trying to communicate and see if we can get any response, any kind of voice. And there are occasions, very few, but I'm almost to be able to count on one hand now the times this has occurred. But there are moments where I'm able to identify a voice that, to me, what I hear is something out loud, something that everyone should be hearing, because it's clear. And I will acknowledge and call out specifically, I just heard a voice of a woman who said, I'm just making this up here, get me out of here. I'll know exactly what was said. Everything perfectly to a science.
Right.
And I'll look at everyone else and say, did anybody hear that? And everyone's looking at me thoroughly confused, and no, we didn't hear anything. Okay, so I'm just thinking, all right, whatever, I'm making this up. I don't know. Just move along. What am I going to do? Nobody else heard it, and I was determined. I was sure everyone else should have heard it. So anyway, fast forward, we go back and listen to that audio, and lo and behold, there is a voice that comes through saying exactly how I heard it. And the weird thing is nobody else heard it at the time. So it validated my experience that I heard a voice, but nobody else did. But it was clear. It comes through on the audio so vividly. And it's so bizarre. So they call this experience or ability being clairaudient.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say if I remotely had any capability, I'm not a medium, I'm not psychic, but I seem to be able to tap into this ability to hear something that nobody else hears. And I think I'm just losing my mind at the moment, but it picks up on the recorder, on the audio device. And that's a moment of great validation for me that I wasn't losing my mind. Some documentation, but it's definitely eerie when nobody else hears it. It's kind of a mind trip. It really is.
There's a book. I can't remember the author right now, but and I can't remember the title. It was right there on my tip of my tongue, and now it's gone. But in the book, she says that, you know, the more you're exposed to that kind of thing, the more it happens, the more it's going to happen to you. And you can actually, you know, like exercising a muscle. And the more, you know, maybe this time 10 years from now, you'll be hearing everything.
Right, I should be careful what I wish for, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Maybe I'll hear too much, but you know, this is so sporadic for me. It really hasn't increased. More so, it can happen, you know, once. Maybe it happened once 5 years ago, and then maybe a year later, I had another experience, and maybe 2 years later. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm even getting better at it. It's just so few and far between. But I'm trying to figure out what I am doing in that moment. How or what mindset am I in to be able to do that? I haven't quite figured that out and made any connection. I don't think I'm doing anything differently, but who knows?
I understand, and I hear you, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. You know, it really, for me, in all seriousness, you know, my experiences really didn't start to gel until I was exposed to it a lot, and here at the radio station,
Right.
And now I look for it. I actively look for it. I have trigger objects up here on the speakers. You know, I have things that, you know, if some ghost wants to come through and play with these things, they have my permission to go right ahead and spook the heck out of me, even if I'm on the air, especially when I have other people on the air. Other hosts, go right ahead, because
right.
You know, I want to share this experience with people, but you know, I don't know. Is that a sign of mental illness on my part? You know, am I crazy? You know, it's got to make you stop and think for a minute. It's like, what am I doing? You know, my youngest daughter says, Dad, I absolutely do not want to hear any more EVPs. Why is that? Because it's just wrong. It's unnatural. You shouldn't talk to the dead. So let them rest. Which kind of tells me that, you know, maybe she's got a little bit more communication going on than she wants to let on. I don't know.
Perhaps maybe she doesn't. Maybe she just wants to tune it out. You know, I definitely welcome those experiences and would love to experience it more often. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing, and it does take you know, experience and going through it to really understand yourself and the mindset that you need to be in. And you know, we're distracted. I know I'm constantly distracted, and my mind is going in 10 different directions. So I wouldn't be surprised for, you know, not being able to tune in, so to speak, as much as I would like to. And I know we talked about this last time we spoke, is about just really focusing on being in the moment and just, you know, take in the environment as much as possible and try not to, you know, force something to happen. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Well,
you know, and oftentimes this stuff slaps you in the face when you're not expecting it.
I like that. I don't know why I like that anymore. Well, the thing is, I've never, in all seriousness, I've never felt uncomfortable here. Okay. Uncomfortable, but not, wanting to run out the door uncomfortable. I'm not alone, which, makes me happy. How can you be lonely when you've got spirits around? But, one of the mediums was here, and I spoke to her, and I said, well, how do you do this? She said, well, you have to be quiet. You have to be quiet. You have to be still. I said, why? Well, I said, why? He said, well, because they speak really soft. Very quiet, and if you're noisy, if your mind is noisy, you're creating a bunch of energy. You just override whatever they're trying to tell you. And
yeah,
so
and that kind of ties into why. Yeah, it ties into why people. I get this all the time. Guests on tours or events who say, "Why do you guys have to do this stuff at night?" I'll say, don't get me wrong. Ghosts don't discriminate between night and day. They don't care. But as far as for us, in the daytime, there's so much noise and just nonsense going on around us in the day. You got cars, you got planes and trains and automobiles, you got people talking and just going about their everyday life.
Uh-huh.
But, at night is hopefully, depending on where you are, is hopefully when people are settling down, people are going to bed, people are, turning things off, no more cars are off the road, generally speaking.
Right.
So you have a little bit of silence to be able to listen for this stuff, and which we wouldn't possibly be able to hear with so much stuff happening around us in the day. So there absolutely are benefits to investigating at night, and it's definitely not because ghosts have a preference. We just have a preference so that we can hear it. Otherwise, we can't. We won't be able to hear anything.
Well, our senses are heightened because it's a little dark, and got that adrenaline flowing because it's a little spooky, and you just you're alone in a dark forest. I'll tell you what, you're certainly aware of your surroundings. You can tell where every tree is in the dead of the dark. And that's not because you've run into all of them, too.
Absolutely. There are some benefits to that, but I know, like we touched on last time, there's also a running theory that we have that there are certain elements of noise that we feel are conductors for communication, be that a car, as we spoke about an EVP previously, some audio evidence that we've obtained. We get results and voices that come through when a car is passing. Trains. This works for trains. The train in San Juan is often the bane of our existence, but in a way, I've kind of learned to welcome it, especially when we're running EVP sessions, because it's possible that maybe that train is conducting the right amount of energy for something to be able to come through and manifest itself and be able to talk. So it's a double-edged sword. I can't decide if I like the noise or if I hate the noise, but I guess it depends on the environment and what you're doing.
Well, okay. Sure. I will, Lyle. Lyle says he wants me to keep you on long enough so he can say hi, so you're going to be a little after the hour. Just awesome. A little,
Let's say hi to Lyle.
Just a little bit. But, and I, when we talked about this, when we first talked, about your theory about possibly the engines and the trains or the energy created by these vehicles is allowing the spirits to speak through them or manipulate the energy or the sound you're hearing. I presented that pretty much universally to all these next guests, and they stop and go, I'm going to have to check that out. So I don't know. Maybe you started something.
It's the patterns are there. And, you can't ignore it. It's maybe there's nothing to it. Maybe it's purely coincidence, but this is an increasing phenomena that's taking place when we're, collecting EVPs. This seems to be something that happens often with a train or a car, whatever it is, but we're going to continue to look into that concept and see what else there is to it.
Uh-huh. Well, all I gotta say is keep on, because I'll tell you what, the EVPs that I presented that night, I keep playing those. I turn my speakers up in my car when I'm replaying that, and I listen to that, and I go, yeah, that's exactly it. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's inexplicable. It's inexplicable. Well, I will tell you about a little bit of an experience I had tonight. I was going to wait for Lyle to tell him this, but one of my fears here, okay, and this is completely irrational fears. If shaving the haircut, boom, boom. Well, I finally got up enough gumption to do it this evening, and I don't know if it was a coincidence or what, but I did the ... and then I heard a boom, boom. I do not know, and I don't know if it was, a truck tire running over a rock. I don't know if it was a spirit knocking back, but it was almost that quick. I got the bump. I got the response. So I'm like, well, I'm going to have to play with this some more.
Does it sound distant or close by? Or?
How do I describe it? It didn't sound distant, but it didn't sound like it was just on the other side of the door either. Cris, I'm out of time for this hour. Hang on, because Lyle wants to say hi. And
of course.
and we will be back. More ghost stories right after top of the hour news on your local station.
From the KTOX studios in Needles, California, with Reuben Broadcasting and Pirate Web Radio Productions, it is now time for Ghost Stories with Rob Hanson.
And welcome back. It is Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Rob Hanson. And on the line, we still have Cris August with OC Ghosts and Legends. And also, we have our other guest. We've got Lyle Sharman with Route 66 Paranormal Investigators, Route 66 Paranormal Crime Scene Investigators, and Licensed Private Investigator. Oh, God, you're getting to be a mouthful, man.
You had to do that again, didn't you?
Every time. Welcome back, Cris and Lyle.
Hey, Lyle, how you doing?
Cris, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great, living the dream over here.
Right on. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a long time.
Absolutely, yeah. How's everything going in your end of the woods?
Everything is good. We just finished up an investigation up in Kingman, but still doing it too. So good to hear you still got things rolling.
Oh yeah, we're always up to something, and this, as you know, this field never gets boring. So there's always something to explore, always something to do.
I'm thinking we need to head back to the caverns.
Yeah, we definitely need to partner up on something. It's been a while.
Yep, absolutely. We had a good time with that, and that worked out well.
Yeah, we it's always fun working with other investigators because you're always so used to being in your own little circle at times. So it's good to get a little
Absolutely.
bit of difference of opinion from others, and I always admired you've got so many cool gadgets, and you always got some new
like
ideas.
I said, it's always nice to do different things. We've got a lot of new people on the group now, and so we're always changing. Everything's always evolving, changing, trying new equipment, new things. We've really gotten into trying a lot, getting back to just regular physical things, just trying to get things to move and stuff. Because to me, it's nothing better than seeing a ball or a stick or just any, silly little object, PVC pipe, whatever. We're making things out of PVC pipe. We're doing all kinds of stuff just to see if something will move, versus just electronic equipment. I love the electronic equipment, but, we're enjoying just trying to get back to, physical stuff again.
Yeah, you want to see some physical. How often would you say you get a physical interaction?
Probably I would say, we just, on this investigation we just did in Kingman a couple weeks ago, we had a ball that came up off a counter by itself. And we're going to show that in a couple weeks on the Rob show. But it was we had put it on the counter and then left the room, and then we came back and the ball was on the ground, and so we have that footage, and it's actually really, really cool. At first we wondered if like a mouse or something knocked it off or whatever, but we actually had where you're going to see this ball come off there pretty prominently. But I would say that I'd say we probably get more electronic equipment that does things than we do physical things, but I just always love a physical object moving. It's kind of like when we did the greenhouse in Needles, and that wood block, just came up off that pillar by itself, and it took probably an hour and a half of filming and work and everything to finally capture that moment. But I don't know, it just always, every time I see it, I just dig it more than if I see a light go off on a K2 or something. I still, like I said, I love all the equipment. It's just it seems to appeal to me, and it seems like a lot of the people like that more when they see that physical object go. But to me, it seems like it's not as much, and it seems like it's much harder for them to do. I don't know what you're finding, but that's kind of what we're finding on our end.
Oh, it's a very rare occurrence, and obviously it's one of the best things that could happen, because you see something physically moving in front of you, and even better if you have that documented. There have definitely been occasions where you clearly can't predict when something is going to move, so you can only have
Absolutely.
so much camera coverage, and so I'm not quite sure if the spirits are outsmarting us, or if we're just not smart enough.
Right. No, absolutely, man. That's totally it. You always wonder, people always say, like, when we're doing equipment and something indicates, that it's a child or it's a man or a woman or, whatever. At the end of the day, I always tell people, and Rob's heard me say this many times, I said, at the end of the day, we don't really know what the heck. It might say it's a girl, it might say it's a guy, it might say it's a child, it might say it's 5, 10, 20, 50, whatever. But at the end of the day, we really don't know, because just like you said, we don't know if it's screwing with us.
Right. When we've had physical encounters such as doors closing or even chairs falling. One of our locations is the Berkeley in San Diego, which is a steamboat right next to the Star of India. And there's these doors that open on their own. And, man, we specifically will document, all right, we're closing these doors, we're bolting it shut, we're making sure to display that everything is secure. And there have been times where, we're thinking that nothing's going to happen, and those doors will fly right back open. And so then when we're watching it, of course, nothing happens. We've got cameras planted on it, and we're not moving. We're going to watch these doors open one way or another. So either the spirits are outsmarting us, or we're just not smart enough to figure out how to catch it. And
it's so funny you tell that story, and I've told Rob this story one time. When I first started in this, and I was I didn't know what the heck I was even doing. You know, we just put together some people, and we went in probably what I still consider to this day as one of the most haunted places in Arizona, and definitely in Mojave County, which was the Brunswick Hotel in Kingman, Arizona. And it was so perfect because, you know, here was this building that was built in 1905 or something like that. And it was a foreclosed property, so it had no power to the building whatsoever. It was completely empty. It had no furniture, no computer equipment, no electronics, no nothing. And it was just this dark, vacant, empty building that was hundreds of years old. And I mean, it was really pristine for you know, somebody who never really had much experience in this, and then you get thrown in it. And from the very beginning, we had things in that place that if you didn't believe in anything, it didn't take long to start believing. But we were up on the third floor of that hotel, and we were seeing movement down a hallway. We weren't sure if it was just the darkness playing tricks with our eyes or whatever, but we had went through that hotel and closed all the doors to all these hotel rooms, and, you know, said, let's just stir things up. We'll close all the doors and see if any doors open or whatever. And the door behind us, it was only hanging on the bottom hinge. The middle hinge and the top hinge weren't even really intact for darn. And we almost had to lift that door kind of up and pull it to get it to be in the shut position. And it wasn't just a shut door, it was a stuck door. I mean, if you know what I mean. I mean, it was stuck because we had to pull it to lock it into, basically put it in a place. I mean, so of any door that in the place that we had shut, that was the one that would be the least likeliest to move, because it would take a tremendous amount of effort to make that door move. And it was behind us, and we were just talking, and all of a sudden that door flew open with so much force and slammed against the wall. And all you heard, I don't even remember how many people we had that night. I don't even remember half the people that were with us that night anymore. But all you heard was a lot of bad words and a lot of yelling all happening at the same time. And it scared the crap out of us, and it scared the crap out of me. And because I'd never seen anything like that before or heard anything like that. And it took us a little time to all compose ourselves, realize what the door had done and what we had just witnessed. And so, you know, it's hard enough, like you said, with physical stuff, to get something physical to move. It doesn't happen very often, and you're very fortunate if you catch it on camera, yet alone experience it live. And so,
right
here back then we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what a rarity those kinds of events would be. So we pulled that door back, and we all sat there and together and tried to see if we could recreate that event. And we sat there filming with this little cheap night vision camera that we had purchased, and we're filming, and we're just begging. We're like, come on, make that door do it again, and egging it on. And literally within 3 minutes, that door flew open again and hit that wall. And this time you're staring at it. Well, it didn't make any darn difference, because we all screamed and yelled just as much as we had the first time. But it was just amazing to me to see a door fly open. I've never had that happen again. I wish to goodness it would do it again, but we've just never had that kind of luck to see something so prominent occur. But it's a great experience when you see a door do that.
If you can experience it, you're one of the lucky few, and I know people have experienced it. And those are those moments, like I always say, that's what personally keeps me coming back. People are skeptical until it happens to you, and when you're in that moment, you're thinking, "Holy cow, what just happened?" and unless you were there, forget it. Nobody's going to believe you.
Yeah, no, it was. We had people that night. One guy that was there that night, he was still an active police officer, and pretty tough guy. He was in that building with us for 1 hour, and that was it. Out the door he went, and he was like, "I'm done with this. This is insane, and I am not doing this." And he said, "I don't want anything following me home. I don't want, none of it." And that was it for him. Out the door he went, and he never returned. Of course, us, we just stayed there and kept glutting for more punishment, and we got more that night. But it was, it's like you say, it's addicting. The more you get, the more addicting it is, and the more that you want. And it's funny, this is a funny part of this, and I know, Cris, you've done the same thing. You'll sit there and say, you're telling the spirits, man, do this one more time, make that move one more time, just one more time, and it does it. Or make my meter go off one more time, or make this go off one more time, and it does it. And then you say, "Well, do it one more," and then does it. And then you're like, "Well, do it one more." You already asked things to do it one time, and you wouldn't ask it no more. But then because it did it, now you want to see it again and again and again. Eventually, you're like, "Well, I'm probably, making this thing mad now because I already said if you did it once more, we'd leave." And now I'm still here 15 minutes later asking you to do it 6 more times.
Right. It kind of makes me beg the question that when you're in those moments and you're getting some interaction, some communication, like you said, you just keep going with it. We'll do it again, or you ask 5,000
here's
questions.
another thing too.
All right, guys, you're going to have to hang on to that thought just for about 3 minutes. We're up against the break. We'll be back. More ghost stories with Lyle Sharman, Cris August, and yours truly, Rob Hanson. It is Ghost Stories with Rob Hanson. On the line, I've got Lyle Sharman. Hi, Lyle. How you doing? Are you with me? Oh, there you are. Okay, and of course I've got Cris August of OC Ghosts and Legends. Holy cow! I got to have you two in studio one of these days, just the both of you, because I'm just gonna turn on the mics and walk away.
Listen, Cris and I are
don't mind
the
us.
two
Don't
best
mind
ghost
us.
hunters on the planet, so you couldn't have two better people in that studio.
Oh, I know. I'm loving hearing the stories fly back and forth, and that's exactly what I envisioned with this program to begin with. Is just ghost stories, experiences, and theories and whatnot and so forth. And heck, Cris, you think you're living the dream, man. You ain't got nothing on me, buddy.
Hey, Cris, I don't know if you know our Ghost Adventure show aired yesterday.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it was back on. They did a repeat on Netflix, I think it was, or something.
Oh, and I just canceled my Netflix account. Dang it.
Or Hulu. Yeah, it was on Hulu.
Oh, Hulu. Okay.
Oh, Hulu. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can get.
Rob, you are surrounded by celebrity status right now. Just so you know.
Oh, you know what? I could get 9 days free of Hulu.
Piggyback off of Lyle. Go hack into his account.
Well, and that's okay too. Oh, next week, guys, we're going across the pond. We've got a group coming in, or not coming in, but they're going to be on the air with me from Great Britain. They are.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. They are Gatekeepers Paranormal, and they primarily do prisons in the UK. So,
awesome.
Yeah,
that should be a great show.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty cool as well. I talked to the lead investigator for a little while on Skype, because, well, international phone calls are kind of expensive, but she's an exciting person, and this is going to be way cool. So, of course, I invite you guys to listen in and call in and do whatever. But
absolutely.
But
yeah,
go ahead.
You know what? You mentioned prisons, and while they're not necessarily related, but it just got me thinking. Lyle, have you investigated many theaters?
No, in fact, I've never done a theater, but there is one in Jerome. In fact, I'm going to be up in Jerome tomorrow, so we're going to stop by and see if they're there. But I don't know if you remember, Cris, but back when Ghost Adventures filmed at the what is that place up in Jerome? The Jerome Grand Hotel. Did you ever watch that episode?
I might have. It was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, a very long time ago. And another guy named Chris, his parents own that place. Well, they own the old theater in Jerome, and he's invited us to come and do that property. And that more than likely is going to be the next location that we go to. Of course, I'll keep you posted because maybe you'd like to join us. But go ahead. What I don't know if you were going somewhere with this or.
Yeah, because we've done a couple theaters, and actually we're really going to be seeking out a lot more theaters. We have a running theory that we feel that theaters are less visual as far as apparitions are concerned, and they are very what we call audio heavy. And we've noticed this pattern with the theaters that we have investigated, that we could have an investigation, all night long, and at the end of it, we'll be thinking, well, man, this was really quiet. Nothing really happened. Perhaps we may have gotten a disembodied voice here or there, which is, pretty fun when you get one of those. But it's not until we review those audio files later on and go through all of those countless hours, and we're just pulling up audio EVPs left and right. There's just chatter everywhere. And so you're leaving these places thinking, man, it's kind of a bust. It was just really uneventful. But then, now going into these theaters, we're thinking, hey guys, don't lose hope just because nothing's happening at the time. There's probably going to be a lot of conversation taking place later on.
It'll be interesting, man, especially if we, if we end up going into this place, because this thing is like really historic and, it's just an amazing location. So I'll probably have to touch bases with you prior to going in.
Funny you say that,
Definitely.
Chris, because I was watching a group that's going to be on either in 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember which, but they have a video where they're in this old Civil War hospital, and they've gone and they were talking to this guy. His way of doing EVPs, he does short 6-second EVPs with 2 different recorders, okay, side by side, and then he'll or 2 or 3 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever, and then he'll stop immediately and then play it back. And then he'll play back the other one and see if anything they caught on the other one right there. So I don't know if if that's something you might consider trying. I don't know.
There really isn't a right or wrong way to do it because nobody has the answers. Nobody knows what necessarily works as a definitive result. So you do have to get creative with how you do these EVP sessions, whether you're using white noise in the background, whether you're, you're using an EMF pump, or you do them in small segments. I personally like to do them in small segments. I like to carry them over a recorder and just do, 5-10 minute segments at a time.
I totally agree with you there. That's for sure. Because I when we first started, we would do those EVP sessions, and of course, again, we were new to it, didn't have a clue what we were doing. So we would sit there and do these things for sometimes 10, 15 minutes. But what you forgot is that at some point, somebody's got to sit there and re-listen to all that stuff. So,
Right.
it's a lot. So I totally now, I'm 100% with Cris on this. Short, very short, quick sessions, and do it from there. I think there's, people that listen to them right after. There's nothing wrong with that. I think some of that started with TV production because it was very user friendly to the fans that were tuning into the TV show because they would get to hear it right away. But I think it also is good for investigators because if you ask a question and then you go back and you listen and you get a response, you would know that you were on to something at that location, or it could be a response that would lead you to maybe another appropriate question. But I think, like Cris says, there doesn't seem to be any real rhyme or reason sometimes to anything. And at the end of the day, we still don't know what the heck's going on. So you just try everything.
Well, and
you try everything, and because nothing's, people say, "Oh, do you think this is a dumb idea if I tried this?" I don't think any idea is dumb. I think anything you try is what the heck, why not?
Well, and then, my memory skips back to the first episode of Ghost Stories, where we were telling you guys were telling the story about the painting at the Catholic Church up at in Bullhead,
right, with the red, yeah,
and then that groan.
Yep.
But did you ever get to listen to the raw of that?
Me?
Yeah. I
absolutely.
I sent it to Ray, and something weird is there. It's not a groan that got recorded, but I'll tell you what, in the headphones, that was weird, spooky weird.
It sounded like a groan when it happened live.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, I wasn't sure what to make of it, but we all, those of us that had headsets on, all heard it at the same time.
Spooky things are happening, man. Spooky things are happening. and come on, guys. Come on, Frank. I know you're around. Let's get the activity going up in here because I
right.
And what works for one ghost or spirit may not work for the next. So,
right.
Especially when you're bouncing around to different locations. What if you're talking to a child or, maybe they like that, live EVP listening and that instant response, and maybe they react best to that versus, another
I think things
really doesn't care.
things are sometimes it's not even about planning anything. It's not about any particular piece of equipment or any way you're doing things. You look back to the, we did the powerhouse, the old power generating station in Kingman, and we were scheduled that night to have, I think it was 6 or 7 investigators. Everybody had to flake out that night for a various amount of reasons. We ended up with 3 of us, and here we are in this big, massive building, and we had been in there one time before. And when I had walked through the door, I saw this black mass, almost looked like a rolling. It had a rolling effect to it. It was very prominent. It wasn't the night messing with your eyes. I mean, it was very prominent. And as I opened the door, it bolted from the left to the right. And so when we went back this next time, we thought, well, let's put a camera on it this time. And once we got there, we realized that the only way we could put a camera where we wanted it, looking in the same direction that we walked through the door, we would have extension cords and stuff across that path that we would have to travel across several times in the night. So we said, well, what the heck? It doesn't matter if it's facing the other direction. It would still capture it. So we did it. That was the best thing that ever happened to us that night because it was not planned. We didn't do anything. We just put it there. We're looking for a black mass that ran across that door. What we ended up capturing was way down at the other end, nowhere near where the first event occurred. We caught the only time we've ever, out of all the years we've been doing this, a full body apparition in a black mass form, but shaped just like a human being, look out at us. We had just went up the stairs, and it to us, it looks like it looks out and then sneaks back in. It's creepiest thing in the world, and it's, people can see it on YouTube to this day. We had posted it back then, but it's one of the best pieces of footage. But we didn't plan for that. We didn't expect it. We had turned our camera a completely different direction. It wasn't even the same thing we saw the first time. It was, so sometimes you just don't plan. I mean, some things you just get, and sometimes it's just best to stick up some cameras, stick up some audio, and not plan anything. And then all of a sudden, you roll that stuff back, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe what I just captured.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes when you just keep it simple, when you just go back to the basics, the gadgets are fun, but as long as you have something documenting it, be it an audio recorder or a video camera, sometimes just utilizing yourself and just being in the moment and letting things happen. Definitely find that, things happen most organically that way, when you're not forcing it or when you're not, trying to find a way to manipulate it. And of course, like I said before, things will slap you in the face and you're not expecting it. It's just out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah, with Lyle, more often than not,
like,
it does smack him in the face or bites him in the back.
This is why I like Cris so much, because we both think a lot the same. When we went back to this location in Kingman recently, that was one of my biggest things I told everybody. I said, over the last few years, we really got caught up in production and filming the show and all that stuff. And I said, and I really felt like we had fell away from EVP sessions. I felt like we had just fell away from just the basics and just getting back to doing things simple and the way we used to do them. And when I thought back, I thought, back when we did things simple and back in the days when the only thing we had was a K2 and a recorder, it seemed like we were catching more stuff back then than we did when we started adding these, 50 billion pieces of fancy equipment. And not that I don't think they're all good and they all have a purpose, but at the end of the day, we really went back into this location saying, we need to, this needs to become something simple. Let's get back to simple. I wanted to really get back also into taking a lot more photographs, taking them with red light, with UV, with flash. And so between Ray and I, we must have taken, oh my gosh, over 100 photographs in that place. And we must have done, I can tell you on mine, I just finished doing all the review of my digital audio, and I did over 52 EVP sessions, all of them, not a single one was more than a minute. And so they were all very short, fast. And at the end of the day, we caught 5 different things on audio, and 2 of them are very substantial. And, obviously we're not going to say nothing yet because we're going to wait till we come on your show to
all right
specifically to talk about those.
Well,
but,
I'm up against the break, guys. I got to run. I'll be right back. It is Ghost Stories. I can't wait to hear I can't wait to hear what you've got out of there, Lyle. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. You just can't see it. We'll be back. Ghost Stories.
Time is fleeting.
You have a ghost story you want to share with Rob? Call 855-586-9134. Phone lines are now open.
Not for very much longer.
And welcome back. It is Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Rob Hanson, and on the line we have Cris August with OC Ghosts and Legends, and then Lyle Sharman with alphabet soup, all sorts of things. Welcome back, guys.
Glad to be here.
I know, Lyle. I've got a lot of making up to do, man. I really do. For all the times you accuse me of running, screaming out of the greenhouse, I've got a lot of making up to do. Anyway, welcome.
Some people are brave in this field, and some people are just like you, Rob, and it's okay.
I haven't run out of this radio station screaming yet, man.
Yes.
No, just the greenhouse.
Just the greenhouse.
Don't feel bad, Rob. My team gives me some flack for having my own moment or two of being a little startled. But never have I run out of anywhere. But
I don't know. I don't. There's evidence of you exiting quickly out of a building.
Okay, let's clarify. But I never ran.
See, that's the thing. I never ran either. However, according to Lyle, I was in a blind panic running into things.
Maybe it was more like a sprint.
And unfortunately, Rob, unless it was caught on video, you're never going to get out of that one.
Oh, I understand that, and it probably wasn't caught on video. But he threatens me that he has it on video. But that's okay. I can live with it.
We're saving it.
That would be something to see. That would be something to see.
It would be definitely something to see. Anyway, okay. You guys are sitting back here. You're swapping tips and tricks and all sorts of things back and forth, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this, 100%. And I'm sitting here thinking, God, I'm listening to two different ghost groups getting ready to team up and go do something. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, this is what we're gonna do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we've only, shared a ghost investigation with one other group, and that's Cris. And we'd be open to others, but really, Cris and I knew each other a long time ago and early on in our careers with this, and then we both filmed with Ghost Adventures together, and then we did some other stuff at the caverns together. And in fact, the night we did that, we had a great night. And so we have a lot of history, and I really respect him and what he does and how he does it and his team and stuff. And and that's what it comes down to. You got to make sure you're working with somebody else that you can enjoy and you got some respect for.
Yeah, and you gotta, the two. We haven't actually worked with another team as well, so it's kind of interesting. But both of our teams have mutually only investigated with each other. But you don't have to agree on everything, and frankly, it's important to whoever you're working with to be able to bring different ideas to the table and challenge you to think out the box. And I'll be the first person to challenge and debate any idea. And I want anyone to challenge my ideas, because we don't have the answers for this stuff. And other groups, and I know Lyle with everything that he's investigating, all these locations he's been to, he's definitely going to have some insight from these places that maybe I wouldn't, and vice versa. So those two different viewpoints are important, and to be able to blend those together. So Lyle was a real treat to work with. Well,
I couldn't agree more as far as that goes, because when you're studying the same thing, even if you're studying the same discipline, two different research groups aren't going to have the same idea to approach the same problem the same, and discussions are going to occur, and solutions out of the box, even solutions are going to be found. So yeah, that's why I say I'm loving this.
Well, and on that note, I think it's really important to challenge each other, because, and maybe Lyle will agree with me or disagree, but a lot of groups and organizations tend to utilize the same ideas and experiments that it's almost like if you don't do it this way, you're doing it wrong, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
Absolutely.
Because we need to experiment with new ideas, and I find it really refreshing when you can come across somebody who says, no, we don't do that at all. We actually try this technique. And it just
absolutely,
it makes me feel like people are
perfect
actually
example to Chris's point. you think you know, the minute you start thinking you know everything or you don't need other people's opinions or help or whatever, you're going to be in trouble. I can tell you, even as my professional career as a private investigator, you're only as good as your contacts and your resources, and you learn that the more of those that you have, the more successful that you'll be in that field. But that pertains, I believe, in every field. And so it doesn't matter what type of work you do. And so one time we did that, this old place, I think you know it, Rob, out on Route 66. It's the old Indian boarding school.
Okay.
And we went in that place. They didn't want us to go in that place, and that, you know, I shouldn't even say we did this, but we did. We went in anyway.
Should I not say what the name is? Because I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, you can say the name right on. I forget what the name of it was, but I know it's the old Indian boarding school right there on Route 66 out of Kingman.
Valentine, right?
Yeah, right in Valentine. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, there we go.
And we went into that place, and they didn't want anybody in there. We just went and did it anyways. It was during the government shutdown, so the Bureau of Indian Affairs was shut down. So we said, heck with it, let's just go. And we did it. And I wouldn't recommend anybody doing that, but we did it. And so we caught this EVP, and it sounded like the voice said, "You dumb Sawachi." And everybody listened to it, except for a few people on the team, but a lot of people listened to it. Everybody that we played it for thought it said, "You dumb Sawachi." We wouldn't even tell them. We'd just say, "What do you think it sounds like?" And everybody was saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, Sawachi must be some sort of Native American for something. And we sent it. I mean, here I was sending this to the different Indian places up in Flagstaff University, trying to get somebody to tell me what Sawachi meant, and some people actually had like an idea and everything. Well, then after all this stuff, and we sent the clips to Flagstaff University, we did all this crazy crap, and at the end of it, Jason and Cameron that used to investigate with us, they were the only ones that hadn't heard it yet. And I said, "You guys got to listen to this. I forgot to give you a copy of it." So we gave it to them. They called me back and they said, "That doesn't say you dumb Sawachi. That says you're telling." We had a girl, my niece used to go with us on ghost hunts. Her name was Michaela. And I was telling her, "Michaela, don't move around so much. Don't move around so much." Sounded like "You dumb Sawachi" on the audio digital. Dude, I had sent that, and I never even contacted those people back to tell them what an idiot I was. Because I was already, at that point, I was like,
head in
oh
the
my
sand.
God, I can't. Yeah, but everybody was totally thought that's what it said until Jason and Cameron's ears heard it. And once they told me what they heard, then I clearly heard that. Then I was like, oh, that is me. That is me whispering to Michaela. That's why now you learn, like today, and Cris will tell you, you do EVP sessions. Anybody moves, sneezes, their stomachs growl, you whisper, anything, you mark it. You say, hey, that was so-and-so whispering. That was this, that was that. That was Ray's stomach growling. It was because if you don't, you literally, like in this case, we literally thought that we had hit the mother load of EVPs and that we had Native Americans speaking to us in the Indian boarding school, and it's me telling my niece to stop moving around so much. We thought it said, "You dumb Sawachi." So at the end of the day, this is exactly why you bring in other people to listen and to hear and to get opinions, and because the minute, I mean, God, if I would have never let Jason and Cameron hear that recording, we might still to this day be on your radio show playing "You Dumb Sawachi" talking about this great EVP we have. At least, I can admit it now and laugh about it, but I'll tell you, I never did, like those colleges, I never contacted them and said, hey, forget it, I screwed up. It's me telling my niece to stop moving around so much. There was no way I was going to admit to that. I was like, we're done. They never contacted us. We never heard from them. I never contacted them. I was like, we'll just go down with me being an idiot all by myself. But what was funny is there was 15 other people that thought it said the exact same thing I did.
Oh,
well,
wow.
That's why when we have EVPs, even our team, this is just something we've been trying to be better with in general, is that when we label something or if an investigator catches a clip that sounds like a voice, they're not supposed to identify in the file or in the file name of what they think is being said, because we want every person who's listening to it to go into it organically without any preconceived idea. That's why when you watch these TV shows, be it, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, when they catch an EVP, the first thing they're going to do is tell you on the screen what is being said. So naturally, the audience is going to run with that. And the audience is thinking, yeah, I hear it. And you had they played that and said, what do you hear? And I can guarantee you almost every person that's listening to it is probably going to have a different opinion. Well,
it's the same with the disembodied voice you caught in the basement of I can't remember the name of the location.
Brackenfern?
Probably the Brackenfern. I identified it as, Gary. And, that's what I heard from the beginning.
You were close, but that doesn't mean that we have the right answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
We don't have the definitive answer. Yeah.
If you ever hear an EVP that we're playing at the greenhouse, and all you hear is like a really loud, high-pitched scream.
Oh, yeah, right. Go ahead.
That is Rob running out of the greenhouse. That is not a messed-up EVP at all. That will be absolute. That's not going to be a ghost. It's Rob running out of the greenhouse screaming. So.
Okay. Oh, at least we've dropped the video and gone to audio now. Great. Wonderful. Thank you.
That's all I want to see. Rob, I'm never going to look at the greenhouse and think of anything but that now.
Yeah, I know, and see that's the thing. He's that's all right. I'll get even with you later, Mr. Private Investigator, licensed even.
Yeah, watch out, Lyle. You got it coming.
I know. That's all right though. I can dish it out and I can take it.
Oh, I know, and I love it, and that's why you guys have a permanent place in my heart. It is. I don't know what it is about the ghost hunting and whatnot, but it is so fascinating. It's surreal. It's a glimpse at the other side. That even with our limited human senses, we can't fully comprehend.
And it's not for everybody. Everyone watches TV and thinks that it's a lot of instant gratification, but it's not. You've got to really have the patience and the drive and enthusiasm for this field to be able to do this. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. That's why some people just prefer, take a ghost tour or go to an event and check out. And that's great. Not everyone is cut out to do this kind of stuff. You got to have a certain commitment and patience to do it. Not everybody can stand around in a pitch black building and wait for something that may never happen.
Or never mind, Lyle. Don't even go there, man. Lyle, what was the name of your psychic?
Oh, Jennifer Wallens.
Jennifer, that's right. Jennifer was the one that told me you've got to be quiet.
Right.
You've got to be still. You've got to be absolutely quiet and still. Otherwise, you're not going to hear him speak. And wow, I don't think I'll ever forget that advice. And I'm running out of time, and I don't want to run out of time. I mean, Steve, I need 3 more hours, man. Guys, it has been an absolute wonderful evening. I've enjoyed this last hour tremendously. And
it's been awesome.
And come back again and again.
Anytime.
Please do. And Lyle, we'll be talking soon, my friend. Very soon.
Yes, we're finishing up all of our review and should be ready to get on the air soon with you to get it all on there.
All righty. Well, thanks for calling, guys. I appreciate it. I got to close out of the program. And happy haunts, guys.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Rob. And
good
cheers, Lyle.
Again, Chris. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
We'll talk soon, man.
All right. Bye. It is Ghost Stories. Wow, what a night. Three different ghost groups, having a ball, listen to the stories, listening to the advice, and I'll tell you what, makes me want to just go back to the greenhouse, be calm, maybe take a tranquilizer and stay downstairs so I don't scream through the night. It is Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Rob Hanson. We'll see you next